Harvey. This is Brooke Weimer calling from University of South Carolina. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time today to participate in our study. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
You might have to bear with me because I do have a southern accent, so.
I have a West Coast accent, so we'll consider
Okay.
it.
We'll try to understand each other. We do appreciate you, and I won't take a lot of your time. So, do you have any questions before we get started?
I do not.
Okay. So I will just go ahead into the questions then. So how did you respond when you were made aware that you would be supervising students from cross-track field placements, like students that are going to be in practicum and internship? How did you kind of respond when you first were made aware that you might be working with students in a different track than your experience?
Yeah, I think at first I was excited and nervous at the same time. I think it's important to be exposed to the different specializations within counseling. I think due to my kind of specialization, my master's program, I think some of them I felt more comfortable with versus some of students. I felt more comfortable with like clinical mental health than I did with school counseling and student affairs counseling.
Sure.
So I think for myself, I felt like a sense of responsibility of learning more about this specialization in order to understand what not only is expected of them, but how I'm going to be able to assist them in their development. And so I think I just felt like excited to learn and get to build these relationships, but also a sense of urgency to also kind of meet my professional needs and also meet like their needs.
Sure. So you kind of were excited, but you just kind of took action then to kind of figure out, what you needed to learn in order to be most helpful to them. So that kind of leads on to the next question was, in what ways did you prepare for your cross-track supervising experience?
Yeah. And I think I am still continuing to prepare, but
it's a forever process, I guess.
It is. I think one way is I started consulting with peers or people that I was aware of that had training in that, and kind of getting to learn a little bit more about kind of the specializations that I was less knowledgeable about.
Okay.
So kind of just whether that be more formally or informally. I also I did some reading in the literature and kind of went back to some of my own texts from my master's program, but then looked up some of the more recent kind of scholarly articles to kind of better understand maybe like what is the action model, what does that entail, what does that look like, or what does like supervising, like what are they expected to do at their site versus maybe what I was expected to do at my site. And then I would say I also try to take on projects and or within my own classes, or try to do my own writing to kind of better inform me of certain aspects of things, kind of allow me to learn more about different specializations so I can meet my supervisor's needs, but then also kind of connect my interests to those things so that I have a more personal connection and understanding. And so we're all kind of developing together in that sense. And then I think lastly, just kind of, I think supervision, I have my own doctoral kind of mentor and advisor. I think she has a lot of training in a variety of specializations, so I think she was able to kind of mentor me and providing me some feedback and necessary important tools that I needed to facilitate that. And then I think lastly, just really the supervisee. I kind of also relied on them to an extent to kind of inform me a little bit of what was going on at their site, and to update me and to kind of tell me and inform me of things that were important that they think I should know about their placement, their site, and their specialization.
Okay. So I kind of heard you saying that you did some consulting, you examined the literature and the different kind of specializations. You also kind of tried to understand what the expectations of the placement sites were for the students, what kind of things they'd be doing. You took on projects that were a part of other tracks, so you could kind of expose yourself a little bit more. And then also your own supervision and mentorship by a supervisor was helpful to you, especially because they already had training in some of these other specializations, and then getting feedback from your supervisee. So sounds like you did a lot to prepare. So tell me a little bit about your experiences in doing the supervision with students cross tracks.
Yeah, I think some of my experiences were, I don't think the students were very excited at first. I think due to the fact that they kind of categorized me in the clinical, even though my master's degree was in marriage and family child counseling, they kind of put me into the category of clinical mental health, and therefore I think there was this assumption that they were kind of a marginalized specialization in counseling, and so they didn't necessarily feel that someone who wasn't a part of that could really necessarily understand some of their needs and struggles. And also kind of were, I think, a little uncertain as to how to navigate some of the complexities of maybe their own hurt and frustration with the program or profession at large, and then my role within that and what they could share. So I think initially that was kind of engaging and having conversations around kind of their own experiences and their own feelings and kind of some of the reality of kind of that and some of maybe their projections onto me. And so I think that was an important piece of you're going to have to repeat the question again.
Yeah, so I was just asking like an open-ended, just kind of your experience supervising students cross-track, just telling me about that.
Yeah.
So. And I was going to ask you about challenges, so it seems like that's kind of where you started, which is fine. So were there any other challenges that you faced? I know there was a little bit of pushback from the students and kind of wondering if you could really understand where they're coming from, and then also they had a lot of issues sort of with the program that were kind of projected into your supervision relationship. Did you have any other challenges?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd necessarily frame it as a challenge. I think that's probably to be expected, much like one's like race or ethnicity or gender or like sexual orientation. Those would be things that I think are very impactful and very personal.
Okay.
And so I think I expected that to some extent. I don't think I expected the level of self-sense, nor do I think I was aware of the level of deepness in terms of their experiences of not feeling heard or seen at times in our program or at times in the profession at large. So I think it really just encouraged me to my own experience to kind of reflect on my experiences and how I may or may not have been privileging certain specializations in counseling, and it also, I think, assisted me in kind of really attuning to our kind of supervisory alliance and relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Really kind of like counseling, paralleling the sense of really building that like relational connection and kind of providing support and being empathic and understanding and validating their experiences. Obviously, there is a component to kind of assisting them, and there's a hierarchical and evaluative nature, but really using myself as a tool and our relationship as a tool, I think it's something that then it's always important to me, but I think it became extra important to me to really assist them and myself in kind of creating this relationship that I think would be useful due to some of our differences and some of our similarities.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of some of my other kind of reflections or experiences of that, I think I really think it goes back to some of the foundational supervisory or counseling skills that you learn as a master's student, and then you get reified throughout your time in like clinical practice and doctoral studies. And I think really just utilizing those became very important to me.
Okay. Yeah, so just kind of going back to the basics, basically, just kind of working on the relationship with them and doing your own self-reflection and, using those foundational skills, it sounds like. were ways that you kind of overcame some of that stuff that came up.
I think also acknowledging and processing some of their thoughts of how that relates to, it's dropped. The reality is, like, they share these experiences that impact them at their site, that impact their supervisory relationship, that impact their experience in the profession, and which includes the role to be an advocate, the role to be as clinically grounded as possible. And so I think by really acknowledging and taking on some of that responsibility to address some of those issues and to allow them to express and then eventually kind of assist them in developing reflections, more proactive and, I guess, ways of looking at it was something that was also, for me, important in the process.
Okay. Was there anything about the experience that you had, or that are you still supervising now, or is this kind of something that you did in previous semesters or one semester?
Definitely, I'm definitely still supervising.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, have there been any experiences that surprised you in supervising students that are a part of these specializations that are different from your own?
Yes, I think, given whether it be, I guess, the more, like, American family or clinical mental health spectrum of things, I think I was shocked at some of what students and supervisors at their sites reported, and in terms of how they felt supervision should go, or in terms of, like, doing notes, and so just some of the, I guess, different professional expectations within specializations. I think that was really surprising for me in looking at how, I guess the more, more clinical and a more clinical-oriented sites, like notes and documentation and understanding assessments were, I guess, something I was probably expecting more of, and I guess I was shocked at first, and which is part of why it required me to learn more about, like, their specific expectations at their site and kind of what we're expecting of them as professionals, because I don't think I was prepared for that.
Okay.
I don't think I was prepared to the level of extent of maybe some of the feelings for specializations who don't feel as validated or heard in the profession.
Sure.
I don't think I was necessarily is prepared to understand maybe some of the intricacies of what that looks like. So, while I have understanding and training in research, understanding, I wouldn't use data in the same way as a school counselor or as a student affairs counselor. So looking at some of, my lack of knowledge pertaining to what they're doing and them actually having more competence and experience with that. And so having to, in a sense, catch up and kind of utilize the knowledge I did have about specific things to kind of assist them in developing. So kind of that, both kind of the parallel process of we're both learning at the same time. But they might actually have more competence in being, I guess, comfortable with that. That, of course, they have potentially more competence or training as their specialization.
Okay. Well, that kind of, this is leading into sort of my next question, which is about preparation and how did you feel your counselor education program prepared you for this experience?
Well, I think...
And it's anonymous. We're not going to say, which school or anything like that. So no worries.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand that. I think for me, there was not initially, so I think in terms of being proactive, there wasn't a lot of proactive grounding people to be prepared in order to work with these things and address some of these potential issues or even some resiliencies that are going to be in it. So I think that piece was really missing for me. However, I felt whether that be specifically in our supervision course or our course in which we present our supervision every semester and internship, that I think they were very, helpful in terms of providing ways for us to kind of collaborate amongst one another, and also ensuring that we get feedback. So I think that was one thing that was helpful in it. I just think there was a large sense of autonomy and expectation that you will do what needs to get done, and if not, you will share that, and then people can find ways to support you. So I definitely think there was a large sense of kind of putting that upon us, providing a nurturing and caring environment to explore that, but really it was, I think, upon the doctoral students or myself in order to kind of address some of the barriers or obstacles that come with working with someone that you don't necessarily have specialized training with in certain aspects. Obviously, you have the core counseling foundational skills and classes that they have, so but not for that.
Yeah, so you had courses that kind of prepared you for supervising, but just not really as much preparation in specific to working with students from different specializations. But it sounds like, you know, you were sort of expected to be proactive and find ways to prepare, and you know, so it sounds like you kind of had to take a lot of responsibility on yourself to kind of be prepared for that. Yes.
And I think only certain, I don't know why, but I've noticed certain people have been given, let's say, supervisees who might be moved through the program being identified as being more challenging, or only certain supervisors have kind of had the experience of kind of supervising across different specializations. And so I can't speak to their intentionality or if there's intentionality behind that, but I am aware of those potential dynamics.
Okay. So how do you feel these experiences of supervising these students, how do you feel like it's impacted your professional growth as a counselor educator?
I think as a counselor educator, it's given me a more whole understanding or a greater understanding of kind of the vastness of our profession and all the different facets of what it's made up of, and kind of the important roles of specialization. I know we often talk about, like, we're counselors first and we're specialization second, but in my experience, that's more of a thing that's not actually practiced. And so I think it helped me to actually go through the process of better understanding that and integrating that into my philosophy and actually beginning to practice that.
Okay.
I think it assisted me in, I think, developing knowledge, awareness, and skills that I don't think I necessarily would have been exposed to if I would not have taught a course related to a specific specialization. So I think just being exposed to that and maybe being expected to that or having my own self-expectations related to that, I think that assisted me just in getting, like, knowledge, awareness, and skills related to some of those specializations. I also think it allowed me to kind of reflect on some of my own privileges and biases and kind of personal values related to how I see mental health at large and the profession at large, and understanding how there are different kind of discourses and different ways of being and specializations. And so I think it exposed me to kind of some of those dynamics, but also some of my own privileges related to kind of being in the majoritarian aspect of the clinical side, or the more clinical side of, I guess, the counseling profession.
Sure. So, I only have two more questions, and so one of them is about, you know, how did you experience some of the issues that the students, like some of the issues or concerns that the students brought during their supervision to you? You know, maybe specific things related to their specialization or whatever, but just any issues or concerns that they brought to you, you know, how did you kind of experience working through those with them?
Yeah, so I kind of, initially my first session of supervision, I kind of go through my expectations. One of the expectations is when you face challenges, you consult, and when you face challenges, you pull out an ethical decision-making model. And so at times in which there were things that, let's go with school schools. Like schools have specific policies in which may or may not be congruent with kind of our own code of ethics or how we envision kind of our expectations as professional counselors. And so I think part of that was kind of going and through the ethical decision-making model, not only for myself, but with my supervisee to kind of help model that and so that we can kind of come up with something together. It also really required me to do consultation and to, whether it be in, end, or out of session, to kind of expose myself and specifically look up things that I don't think I necessarily had to maybe learn in the code of ethics or think about. And so I think it required me to engage in those kind of activities. Mm-hmm. I think also required trying to be very intentional as much as possible in my practices as well. So kind of using my own knowledge and skills, their knowledge and skills when we engage that to kind of move forward with that. However, at the end of the day, in terms of they also had a practicum or internship instructor and a site supervisor. So I thought I also felt a sense of ease of ensuring that this was my perspective, this is how I was seeing it, and either myself touching bases with either their instructor or their other supervisor, or encouraging them to do it, and then for them to touch bases with me after doing that. So I guess that would be some of the ways in which I kind of navigated that.
Yeah, so kind of understanding sort of the expectations of their organization and kind of understanding some of the ethical dilemmas they face related to that and their just kind of environment that they were in, and then also understanding where the site supervisor's perspective and sort of their discipline and where they're coming from, as you thought through how to help them kind of manage issues or concerns that they had in the placement. Okay, and then the last question I have for you is just, how do you feel after, kind of completing some semesters supervising students cross-track? How do you feel about it now?
I think it is going to be a reality that many people face. And so I think it would be really beneficial to have, I guess, not only have master's students engaging in that experience, to get exposed to kind of consulting amongst different kinds of professionals in terms of we all have different forms of expertise, and so I think it can create a better community around providing kind of services for the people we seek to serve. Mm-hmm. And I think for doctoral students, I think it is important to be exposed to, because the reality is for most people you're going to have students from a variety of specializations, and therefore I think by having that experience and some of the knowledge, I think as an educator, I will be able to be more informed in terms of some of that, and also have access to certain knowledge and experiences that I wouldn't have without that. I think it also kind of allows me to, I think feel more comfortable and prepared to be able to navigate and assist people, whether that be supervisors or students in some of their own processes. And I think I feel, lucky and privileged to, have had opportunities to understand people's experiences within the profession. That I think looking at who's represented and who's not represented, looking at who we seek to better understand or who we seek to write about or engage in scholarship about is important. So I think it also informs, just all the different things I'm expected to do as a counselor educator. So be a supervisor, an educator, be a researcher, be a leader. I think it informs all of that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you feel like it just kind of increases your professional growth as a counselor educator. It kind of exposes you to things that you'll probably experience in the future, but also sort of exposes you to, opportunities that maybe not all counselor education doctoral students might have in supervising students from different specializations. And so, it kind of, gives you a leg up sort of when you get into the field and might experience this in the future. But it also sounds like you see the benefit for students in working with individuals across disciplines and sort of that collaboration piece and understanding how to work with people that are a part of different specializations. And then, so I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Your answers are going to be very helpful to us in our study. And, it sounds like we're on track, because it does sound like, there's sort of this preparation for supervision, but it's, nothing's really done to sort of prepare us for this particular experience. And so we kind of have to figure it out on our own. So maybe what we come up with will be helpful when students are looking at the literature and want to see, how do other people prepare for this? And, what have they found helpful? So that's kind of where this came from us, was just that we were like, hey, we're about to have to do this and we don't know how to prepare. So, I think this is going to be very helpful to doctoral students in the future too, that will experience the same thing. So
I agree.
Yeah, so thanks for giving back to the profession and giving us your time, and we really appreciate you. And will you be at ACES in October?
I will be.
Okay, well, I'll keep an eye out for you. My name again is Brooke Weimer, so I'll keep an eye out for you there, okay?
Excellent, I would like that.
All right, well, have a good afternoon, okay?
You too.
Thanks, bye-bye.